A stray bullet hit a 14-year-old kid in Jamaica's most dangerous neighborhood, and while bleeding in that hospital bed, he chose a name that would make him a millionaire Grammy winner who now buys wheelchairs for the same hospital that saved his life. Rodney Basil Price entered this world on June 12, 1972, in Trenchtown, Kingston, Jamaica. If you don't know about Trenchtown, let me paint you a picture. This neighborhood is legendary for two things: producing incredible musicians and being extremely dangerous. Bob Marley grew up in Trenchtown, so you already know the place has music flowing through its streets like water. But it's also one of the poorest and most violent areas in all of Kingston, where gunshots ring out regularly and families struggle just to put food on the table every single day. Rodney was one of 9 children, which meant his family had a lot of mouths to feed and not much money to go around. Growing up in that environment, you either find a way out or you become another sad statistic that nobody remembers. What's crazy about Rodney's story is how early he got started in music. When most kids are still playing with toys and learning basic math, 9-year-old Rodney was already working as a sound system DJ. Now, if you're not familiar with Jamaican culture, sound systems are basically mobile DJ setups that people set up at street parties and outdoor dances. These aren't fancy club events. These are raw street parties where people from the neighborhood come out to dance, drink, and forget about their problems for a few hours. The DJ's job isn't just to play records, it's to hype up the crowd, talk over the music, and keep the energy high all night long. Little Rodney learned how to command a microphone and control a crowd's mood before he even hit puberty. He watched how people reacted to certain words and rhythms. He studied the veteran DJs who knew exactly when to bring the energy up and when to bring it down. This was his real education. Not what he was learning in school, but what he was learning in the streets. But then came the day that changed everything forever. Rodney was 14 years old when a stray bullet struck him during some street violence that he wasn't even involved in. Imagine being a kid and suddenly you're lying on the ground bleeding, not knowing if you're going to live or die. He got rushed to Kingston Public Hospital where doctors fought to save his life. While he was lying in that hospital bed recovering from his wound, something shifted inside his mind. Instead of being traumatized into giving up on life in the ghetto, he decided to transform that near-death experience into something powerful. He chose the name Bounty Killer right there in that hospital room. The name represented survival, strength, and the harsh reality of life in Kingston's toughest neighborhoods. Most people who get shot that young either die, get paralyzed by fear, or seek revenge that leads to more violence. Rodney chose a completely different path. He chose to kill it in the music game instead. After recovering from his gunshot wound, Bounty Killer became obsessed with perfecting his craft. He went back to the sound system circuit, but now he had a new hunger in a name that people remembered. The sound system scene in Jamaica during the 1980s and early 1990s was incredibly competitive. DJs would battle each other, going back and forth with lyrical attacks trying to prove who was better. These weren't friendly competitions. These were verbal wars where your reputation was on the line every single night. Bounty Killer learned how to think fast, create devastating lyrics on the spot, and deliver them with an aggression that made people stop and pay attention. He wasn't the smoothest singer or the most melodic performer, but he had raw power and authenticity that you couldn't fake. When he grabbed the microphone, you believed every word coming out of his mouth because you knew he had lived through the things he was talking about. By the early 1990s, Bounty Killer was ready to move beyond sound systems and into actual recording. His debut album came out around 1993 or 1994, and it was called Roots, Reality, and Culture. Right from the title you can see what he was trying to do. He wasn't making music to escape reality, he was making music to document it and reflect it back to the people living it. The album featured songs like Copper Shot, Down in the Ghetto, and Book. These tracks became instant classics in Jamaica because they spoke directly to people's everyday experiences. Down in the Ghetto wasn't some romanticized version of poverty. It was a raw description of what life actually looks like when you're struggling to survive. Copper Shot talked about violence and street justice in blunt terms that made some people uncomfortable, but resonated deeply with others who lived that reality every day. Book showed his versatility by tackling different subject matter with the same intense energy. What separated Bounty Killer from a lot of other dancehall artists was his willingness to talk about uncomfortable topics. While some artists only wanted to make party music or love songs, he was addressing poverty, police brutality, political corruption, and the cycle of violence that trapped so many young people in places like Trenchtown. This earned him the nickname Poor People's Governor because even as he became more successful, he never stopped positioning himself as a voice for the disadvantaged and forgotten. At the same time, his aggressive delivery and no-nonsense attitude earned him other nicknames like the Warlord and Five-Star General. These military-style names reflected his commanding presence and his role as a leader in the dancehall community. The year 1996 marked a major turning point when Bounty Killer released an album called My Experience. This project didn't just do well in Jamaica, it exploded internationally. The album spent 6 full months on the Billboard reggae charts, which is an incredibly impressive achievement. Think about what that means for a second. Billboard charts are dominated by American artists with massive marketing budgets and major label support. For a dancehall artist from Jamaica to hold a chart position for half a year meant that people all over the world were consistently buying and listening to his music. My Experience proved that Bounty Killer had crossover appeal beyond just hardcore dancehall fans. The album attracted listeners in the United States, Canada, the UK, and throughout the Caribbean. It also caught the attention of artists and producers in other genres who started seeing dancehall as something they could incorporate into their own music. As the late 1990s transitioned into the early 2000s, Bounty Killer made a strategic move that would define the next phase of his career. He started actively collaborating with major artists outside of dancehall and reggae. This wasn't just about making money, though the international features certainly paid well. It was about exposing dancehall music to audiences who might never listen to a purely Jamaican artist. He worked with hip-hop legends like Mobb Deep and Busta Rhymes, bringing his distinctive Jamaican accent and dancehall flow into hardcore New York rap tracks. He connected with the Fugees and Wyclef Jean, blending Caribbean rhythms with hip-hop beats. Each collaboration introduced his music to new fans who then went back and explored his Jamaican catalog. But the collaboration that changed his career forever happened in 2002 with a rock band called No Doubt. The band, fronted by Gwen Stefani, invited Bounty Killer to feature on a song called Hey Baby. Now on paper, this combination sounds strange. A hardcore dancehall DJ from Trenchtown working with a pop rock band from California seems like it shouldn't work. But the song became a massive hit, selling over 1 million copies and going platinum. Even more significantly, Hey Baby won a Grammy Award for Best Pop Vocal Performance in 2002. Picture this moment. Bounty Killer, who started as a 9-year-old kid hyping up crowds at street parties, who survived a gunshot wound at 14, who came from one of Jamaica's poorest neighborhoods, was now standing on stage at the Grammy Awards accepting one of music's most prestigious honors. That Grammy gave him instant credibility in markets that might have dismissed him as just another reggae artist. It proved that dancehall music belonged on the world's biggest stages. Throughout his career, Bounty Killer appeared on more than 500 different rhythm albums. For people who don't know reggae and dancehall culture, rhythm albums are compilations where multiple artists record different songs over the same instrumental track. It's a unique tradition in Jamaican music where producers create a rhythm track and then different DJs and singers put their own lyrics and melodies over it. Being featured on 500 of these projects shows just how prolific and in-demand Bounty Killer was. Producers from all over the world wanted his voice on their rhythms because they knew his presence would give the track credibility and commercial appeal. He could make any instrumental sound harder and more authentic just by adding his distinctive voice and style. The collaborations kept getting bigger as his reputation grew. He eventually worked with Jay-Z, one of hip-hop's biggest moguls. He recorded with Rihanna before she became the global superstar she is today. He connected with Swizz Beatz, the legendary producer responsible for countless hip-hop hits. More recently, he's been featured on DJ Khaled's albums in 2022, 2024, and 2025. These aren't just random throwaway verses either. DJ Khaled specifically brings together dancehall legends like Bounty Killer, Vybz Kartel, Buju Banton, and Mavado to create tracks that celebrate and preserve authentic dancehall culture while introducing it to modern audiences. The fact that Bounty Killer is still getting these high-profile features in 2024 and 2025, more than 30 years into his career, proves that he's not just a nostalgia act, but a relevant artist who still has something valuable to offer. One of Bounty Killer's most important contributions to dancehall might not be his own music, but rather the artists he helped develop. In the early 2000s, he founded a collective called The Alliance. This was more than just a record label or a crew of friends. The alliance functioned like a family where experienced artists mentored younger ones, teaching them not just about music, but about the business side of the industry and how to handle fame without self-destructing. Through the alliance, Bounty Killer personally mentored some of the biggest names in modern dancehall history. Vybz Kartel is probably the most famous artist to come through the alliance. Kartel went on to become one of dancehall's most influential and controversial figures, dominating the genre throughout the 2010s even while serving time in prison. The relationship between Bounty Killer and Vybz Kartel eventually soured and ended badly, with public feuding and diss tracks. But nobody can deny that Kartel learned valuable lessons during his time under Bounty's mentorship. Mavado, another massive dancehall star, also came up through the alliance. Elephant Man, known for his energetic performances and dance moves, benefited from Bounty Killer's guidance. Busy Signal and Bling Dog both developed their skills within the alliance structure. What makes Bounty Killer's mentorship impressive is that he didn't just give these artists a platform to perform. He taught them how to navigate record deals, how to protect their publishing rights, how to tour internationally, and how to build sustainable careers instead of becoming one-hit wonders who flame out after a few years. He shared the hard lessons he learned so they wouldn't have to make the same mistakes. Some of these artists eventually went their own way and relationships got complicated, which is natural in the music business. But the alliance shaped an entire generation of dancehall performers who carried forward the traditions and innovations that Bounty Killer represented. Now, let's talk about money because everyone wants to know what a dancehall legend is actually worth after 30+ years in the music industry. As of 2024 and 2025, Bounty Killer's net worth is estimated at around $1 million. Some people might see that number and think it seems low for someone with his accomplishments and influence. After all, he's won a Grammy, appeared on 500 albums, collaborated with some of the biggest names in music, and been performing internationally for decades. But you have to understand the economics of Caribbean music to appreciate what that $1 million represents. Dancehall artists don't typically get the same royalty rates and streaming revenues that American pop or hip-hop artists receive. The music industry has historically undervalued Caribbean music, paying lower rates for licensing and airplay. Streaming services pay fractions of pennies per stream, and even with hundreds of thousands of monthly listeners, the money adds up slowly. A lot of Bounty Killer's wealth comes from touring and live performances, where he can command high fees because of his legendary status and proven ability to draw crowds. When he performs at festivals or concerts in the United States, Europe, or anywhere around the world, people pay premium prices because they know they're seeing a true icon. He also earns ongoing royalties from his extensive catalog of music. Every time one of his songs plays on the radio, streams on Spotify or Apple Music, or gets used in a movie or commercial, he receives payment. Those 500+ rhythm album appearances generate small amounts of money individually, but collectively they add up to a steady income stream. Smart real estate investments have also helped him build and protect his wealth. Instead of blowing all his money on expensive cars, jewelry, and partying like some artists do, Bounty Killer invested in property that generates value over time. This shows financial intelligence and long-term thinking that many entertainers lack. He's previously helped reggae legends Junior Byles and Tiger when they faced health crises and financial struggles. Looking at his complete journey from a 9-year-old sound system DJ to a 52-year-old legend with a Grammy, a national honor, and $1 million net worth built entirely on talent and determination, you see what's truly possible when you survive, adapt, and never forget your roots. So support artists like Bounty Killer who actually give back to their communities and use their success to create real change.